Hello again and welcome to Made by Michiel. This is my second tutorial about using FreeCAD. The first tutorial was about how to fix a model once you break it, like if you model it the wrong way and you change something and everything breaks. And this video I'll try to focus on making something from the beginning in a proper way so that it will not break, so you won't have to, theoretically, so you won't have to fix it anymore. Alright, let's start. I already started a new file here. So I'm in the part design workbench. I'm gonna assume you know what that is. Making a new body. Before I make a new sketch, I make a datum plane. Now technically for this first sketch is not really needed. So you know what? Oh yeah, by the way, there's no attachment mode that fits the current set. We want this. We don't want it attached to anything. Basically, any datum plane that I make, I don't attach it to anything. I just leave it here and I position it using other ways. And one way I would position it is using this one, the placement here. If you click it open, you can see here that you have an angle and an axis. This is, very confusing. It doesn't work very nicely. Instead, I let me do that again. I press placement and the three buttons on the side here, and you go to this menu where you have Euler angles, or you can change Euler angles, and you can rotate around the X, Y, and Z axis, which is way more, well, I find is a lot more intuitive. If you notice, you have these little FX icons here right next to any value. If you click on them, you can enter a formula, and I use that a lot to place my parts. But we have a datum plane, and basically what breaks the geometry, let's start with that, is if you reference stuff. Let's go to my how to avoid stuff from breaking. Well, don't map or attach stuff that's generated from other stuff. Say in my last video you could see that we made a sketch, we did a pad on it, we did a pocket. Let's do that again now. So okay, we have a sketch. Okay, let's use this plane. Come on, never mind. There you go. Sketch, I'm not going to bother constraining all of it. Fine, close it. Pad it, let's say 20, why not? Okay. Then pick the side, make a new sketch, which is now mapped to that side face, which is what we don't want, but yeah, that's kind of happens. Okay, I'm not going to bother constraining it. And we pocket it, and let's say pocket it for 30, why not? So we have a nice pocketed model, we would say, right? Oh, and as a bonus, what we also did in the last one is we select something from this second layer of generated topology, create a new sketch to that, and again add something to it. Not gonna bother constraining it, and we do a pocket again. Let's make this 50. There, that's basically the gist of what the last tutorial was about. And then we started to change the original sketches, and then things started to break. So first you do is, let me make everything invisible. I do that by pressing space. You select something, you press space, it becomes visible or invisible. Start with this sketch, do a pad operation on it, you get the pad. Select one face of it, create a new sketch mapped to that face. You can also see here it is mapped, the support for that is the pad operation with the face called face 2, which is the reason why stuff breaks, because as soon as you change the sketch that pad 2 relies on, then it generates a different name for the face, which is why everything breaks. So, and after that you do the pocket, and in the pocket you do basically a third level. You create a sketch based on a third level generated geometry, and you make a pad based out of that again. So there's a lot that can go wrong in this. So let's delete all of that because I don't need it. Yes, I want to delete all of it. So delete the pad, delete the pocket, delete the pad. Yes, I don't care. Delete the sketch, delete the sketch. So what is the right way? Well, back to the presentation here. How do you avoid it then? So how should you map and attach stuff? Well, focus on attaching it to basically the first level that you can attach it to, if at any. So you would attach it to the sketch of the operation. Say you create a sketch and you make a pad or a pocket from it, like we just did. If you link anything there, then you would link it or attach or map, whatever you want to call it, it to the sketch that created the operation rather than the operation itself. And before you would do that, you would attach it to a datum plane that the sketch itself is attached to. Or the proper way to do it, or more proper way, whatever. There's not really one completely proper way. Nothing is 100% foolproof, and you have to kind of mix and match as you go along anyway. But there is an order to these things, and one of the first orders that you should do is use a spreadsheet. Now, why? Because it's very easy to manage, very easy to control. It's a little bit trickier to set up, but not much. And it allows you a lot more flexibility in how you make and edit your models afterwards. Basically, attach as high in the chain as possible to something that will most likely not change anymore, like a master sketch. So we have a body, and I will create a quick sketch here, and doesn't really matter what you map this to, because this one isn't really gonna be very relevant for most things, and I'm not going to constrain it to anything yet, if ever, and I will rename this, press F, no, not that one, rename this one to sketch/master, so that it's clear that this is the master sketch. Any other sketch, I will say I don't want this, I want the next sketch to stand up straight, and I will map it to a datum plane. So we go back here to these, these three dots, and I want to rotate around, as you can see, the x-axis, and I will take 90 degrees, and then I will create a sketch here. And I don't really need to put anything in here yet. It's just to get a bit of a visual reference. Here I will have a sketch. Now this sketch is mapped to the datum plane. If I move this datum plane, the sketch moves with it. So say, I don't know why I opened that. It's a habit. Don't need to do that. I put this to not 45 but 50 degrees. So let's get an odd angle. Then the sketch changes with that. Now let's go back to the master sketch for a moment, and I will constrain these. So let's call this, let's make that 50, and no, I don't want that yet. You see underneath here you have a name, optional, and for this I will call it width. And for this one I will also constrain it, and I will make that 80, why not, and I will call that length. And the reason I give them names is so that I can use them as a reference for the other sketch. Let's go back to sketch 001. I will give this a constraint, but rather than fill in a value, I can click this formula button here, or press the is button to go to the formula. And if I now type it in, basically you type in a path, that's a wrong word, I guess. You type in the level of where you want to go. So in this case, I want to use sketch master, the constraints, dot, and now the name of the constraints. So we have the length, so we go for length. And you can see the result is 80 millimeters, which is what I gave in the master constraint. So that's good, right? Okay, let's do the same on this one. Press the, you know what, let's just use the FX button here. So sketch, pat down sketch master, constraints, dot, width. The result is 50. Okay, and close it. So what I have done now is in sketch 01, I have used measurements that were predetermined in the master sketch. So if I change measures in a master sketch now, come on, select it. If I make this 60, it'll become bigger. If I make this 100, it'll also become bigger, and this should propagate to, and it did, to the other sketch that I just used here. Now that's one way to do it. I'm gonna use another method here. This is actually the better method, but I'm gonna use another method that's also possible. Select everything, delete it. There's an option here in the bar that says copy the geometry of another sketch. I'm going to click that, and since I have the master sketch visible as well, in the bottom left here you can see messages what is relevant to the situation. The selected sketch is not parallel, yada yada, whatever. Click Ctrl A to allow. Yes, I do. So there. Now what it did is it took that master sketch and it basically made a copy of that sketch. Let's close it and open it again. And the reason I do that is so that it projects directly on the sketch that we are working on. This is not the same sketch. It is basically a copy that is still dependent on the master sketch. And the way you can see that is we have length width here, but it is fixed. And the name is also the same. And if I click on the formula editor, you will see that it is fixed to sketch constraint.8 or whatever you call these, 8. So okay, same goes for this one. It has a name length, so the naming is the same, but if you go to the formula editor, it'll see that it is still mapped to sketch constraint 9, which is the names, or the numbers I should say, of these constraints here. So constraint 8, constraint 9, constraint 10. I don't suppose you can see that here. No, it doesn't matter. All right, so that's basically the first real step. Yeah, now let's make a why not? Let's make a pocket out of this, and why not 50? Let's make it a big one. If we also want to control how thick this is, then another thing we can do. Actually, no. Let's just make this proper now. Double click. And you can use the same formula here. So this is what I'm about to do now is not that clean, but it is, you can use it. It's a master sketch, it's a reason for it. I'm gonna switch to construction geometry. Why the heck not? I don't even have to do that. Just place a placeholder thing here. I don't care about constraining anything. Select it. I'm gonna make this say 40, not 50. And I'm gonna name this pad thick. Pad thick. Close it out. Go to the pad. Click on this. Go to Sketch, Sketch Master, Constraints, Constraints pad thick. And now you can see that the thickness of the pad auto adjusts with whatever value I give in here. So if I make this 30, now let's make it bigger actually because it makes it easier for the next example. Now you can see that this is 60 deep. So yeah, actually that's most of it. I mean, I could do a pocket operation on this, but the same applies to that. Let's maybe call it quits for this one, and then the next video I'll make a proper model using a spreadsheet. How about that?